Okay, thank you, Aman, and good morning, everyone. Is everybody here? If you're not here, speak up now. Okay. So super glad to be kicking off Pakistan Dreaming, first one of its kind. And it's actually my birthday week, so happy to enjoy this community time together. It's been a bit of a week, so very pleased to be doing this now with you. And first, let's just learn who is here. So pop in the chat a couple things. One is, what did you have for breakfast? And second is, in which city is your laptop right now? So where are you in the world? So breakfast and city. So I'm in London. This is a place where I go home, and yeah, for breakfast it's just been very boring today. Just had some toast and a cup of tea. And I can see very nice things coming through the chat. People make nice effort for breakfast. That's important. At least that's what they say here is the biggest meal of the day, to set you in the right way. And why I asked that, I just, I really enjoy food, and I think we all should do. And you do get to my heart through my tummy. So quick tip there for you. So let's kick off. The aim of this session is to clarify what is all this hype of Agile actually about. We hear a lot about it. So I will be delivering content, yes, but I am not only going to be delivering content, you also getting involved, right? As I'm asking some questions already, I will continue be asking things along the way, right? We're going to build certain things together. There is loads to cover on this content and this concept, and this is an intro session, and there is much that we won't have time for, and I have come to terms with that. Now, I haven't introduced myself yet. Hello, hola, I am Ines Garcia. I'm an inventor. I invent things for a living, especially connecting the dots. I'm an Agile coach and a Salesforce MVP. These things together, what it means that I do every day is help companies to become more agile whilst delivering most of the time Salesforce technology. I have 13 Salesforce certifications, and I'm a certified Scrum professional. So I've gone through the full path of Scrum related. And I've been doing this dual work since 2013. Now, I truly believe living the world in a better condition than how we have found it. So very happy to be here to share a little bit of knowledge for you to take and then make that happen in your own environment. I advocate for the community and Agile a lot. As you can see, I get involved with trillion things, and these are only few. Because we live only once, right? Time is perishable. So I'm always inventing things, and I love games, actually, board games. And I even invented a game a couple years ago, which is basically merging my love for games and the work that I do with teams. Just a pack of cards to assess, inspect as a team, and also hopefully having some fun along the way. That's how was designed. And last adventure, we can call it, was publishing a book at the end of last year about, of course, Salesforce and Agile. You might have guessed the content. And if we have time at the end, I'm happy to take questions about it or anything. Just writing a book in itself is a journey. And basically it's packed with real life stories of teams that I work with, because I'm on this quest to demystify what is Agile hype really about. So, bring the ideas really down to earth, to its core. So it's easy to understand and tangible so that the community can see their daily work with this lens. And that's for admins, consultants, project managers, developers, architects, you name it, for humans that wants to deliver value in a more thriving, interesting, and less painful in the Salesforce world. So looking at these 4 pictures, right, which one describes the best how you feel when you hear about Agile? And because we can do the camera really, just pop in the chat either 1, 2, 3, 4. Which one of these 4 images describes the best how you feel about Agile? No wrong answer. Okay, we go most 1 and 4s, and still some 3s and 2s. So very nice mix of all feelings. That's thank you for sharing with others. Let's see how you feel at the end. So good philosophers always starts with definition, setting out the playing field so that we all have the same understanding. And that's also that you can take away in the Salesforce world. We have all these acronyms in technology and the different industries. So start defining things is a good thing. That helps everybody to know what we're talking about. So if we just Google or take the dictionary, if anybody does that still, if we just look for the word agile as an adjective, it tells us that is to move in a quick and easy way. Now, agile with capital A is an iterative incremental approach, optimizing predictability and controlling risk. Now, this sounds a mouthful. I actually found another description that explains so much better to me what we're actually trying to do here, which is we want to deliver better value, or in our case, better Salesforce value, sooner, safer, happier. So now get ready to pop in the chat. When you hear delivering better Salesforce value, better value, what does it mean to you? How can that translate to your everyday work? Okay, we have mentions of increments often, things that don't break. Customer success. Things that are used, okay. Better value, yeah. So how about sooner? It doesn't say faster. So sooner, what does delivering Salesforce sooner could mean for us? Earlier, sprints. Yeah, that's one way to do these iterations. Often enhancements. Yeah. Okay. How about safer? Safer. Safer can mean many things, but for you, what does it mean delivering Salesforce in a safer way? Clear pipeline, repository. Salesforce is fantastic for many things, but we know that it's not so easy to undo one deployment. Can't just recall back. So yeah, repositories are definitely very helpful, especially if you're doing sooner. Then safer is very easy to see on those iterations when if something may have gone a bit funny. Safer that is not broken, or if it is broken, I suppose the question will be like how quickly you can time to recover. And last but not least, something that we just don't speak enough about, I'm fairly passionate, that is the concept of happier. So in the work that we do, how can we deliver better Salesforce value happier? What does happier mean for us? Yeah, happy customers, happy team, happy people, no? A lot of people that are involved in the things that we do, stakeholders, customers, the team, other parts of the organization, suppliers, partners, people in general, yes. That is fun. Yes, life is perishable. We definitely, the days are not coming back, so we need to make the most out of it. Yeah. And challenging something, I get bored fairly quickly, so it needs to have a good level of challenge for me, knowing that I make the difference with the things that we do. So scroll to the chat. We have as a team a description of what is for us delivering better value sooner, safer, happier. And that's an exercise that you can take and do with your team. It will come some items that actually you can put in place so that you can look at how is delivering safer, like some of the things in terms of how we train users, or how easy in fact is our thing. So it's easier to digest, doesn't need to be a stop and training, for example. Okay, now one way to depict this better values and a safer, happier, it could be this picture like this, right? So let's think for a second that we want to deliver a product that enable us to go from A to B. Just trying to do the analogy of the image. And that could be anything really, like put in place a refund process or returns or something like that, something that wasn't there before. And so we're here to deliver the ability to go for a user from A to B. Now, in a more traditional way to tackle projects, that user, you can only go from A to B when 100% of the work is complete. So is this image at the top of it here, right? You can only tangibly get some value when 100% of the thing is done. As you can see, Customer not happy, can go from A to B, and at the end, yes, can go from A to B. Now, instead, we trying to do so with those iterations, increasing predictability and controlling risk, such as the item at below, right? Happy customer throughout, because in fact can go from A to B from the beginning and gets enhanced and tweaked over time. And so for me, it really comes down to this idea you may have heard of minimum viable product or minimum MVP, minimum marketable feature, minimum lovable product. What is the least I can do to get the most return? And that's a question that you can be asking yourself often. And really comes down to the concept for me of reducing waste. How can we reduce deviation to what really is wanted, right? And just strip out everything else that there is no needed. The concept of just in time or minimum get the most with the work not done, right? So how can we have a good level of return for the effort that we put? After all, we are trailblazers, and what is a trailblazer? Is a person who is the first to do something, an innovator, right? So how can we find where there is no path and leave a trail? Something's bubbling a lot at the minute, and I saw this tweet from Tiffany Boba from Salesforce, and I thought it will be a good pause of reflection, right? Of how do we live? How can we focus living in the age of distraction? Just comes from all angles, from all channels, notifications until there is no tomorrow. What are the effects that it has in the work that we do? And so this is only at the individual level. Then scale this idea on a team, right? So multiple individuals performing in an age of distraction. What does that actually mean? What are the impacts that those things has, right? Or in a department, in a whole organization, right? So how can we be scaling this to see the system view? And so with all of this really comes back, at least to me, it calls me to the idea of how can I reduce waste? How can I focus on what matters, right? So it's going beyond of measuring what you can count, but actually count what matters. And why we even want to do the things differently, right? Or why Agile? And here I'm going to give you some figures. After all, we in information and technology, so data does talk to us in many ways. And Salesforce themselves in 2006, they make the move from a more traditional way to tackle projects to a more agile way within their engineering team. And with that move, they increased productivity by 38%. And they managed to wrap up the major releases that we love 3 times a year, 60% faster. Those are big numbers. I give you some more numbers. Chaos report talks about success rates going beyond 39%, and especially that idea of as more complex something is, the most value you get out of Agile. And some more numbers, improvement on cost, on schedule, productivity, quality, satisfaction, all around. Now, you may have seen this. Teams can go fast, real fast. But if the rest of the organization doesn't keep up with the pace, it kind of defeats the object. And so it's really important to have this idea of adaptive leadership. We should move away from trying to predict the future 18 months in advance. Anything can happen. We have been reminded very often recently that there are unexpected changes. So how can have this idea of iterations and incremental approach so that we can reduce deviation, increase predictability, and reduce risk, right? And this is also across of the organization with business agility. So you have, speed to market, so that allows you that market success and satisfaction, whatever else. So you may be thinking, why bother to do the things differently, right? And so my answer to that is that if we think of how we were operating a century ago, industrial revolution, manufacturing and so on. So we were more focused on execution rather than innovation. Life, one would argue, that was more predictable. We had very clear what we want to accomplish and how we were to do it. And for that, we had very defined roles and modules and practice to execute very defined plans. Now, things change more quickly nowadays. So we need to be able to inspect and adapt more rapidly and deal with greater uncertainty. And, I keep referring about doing the things differently. Differently of what? And there is a very common methodology to deliver projects, and that's called Waterfall. You most may have heard. If not, you've definitely been seconded by it. And it works in a kind of cascade of events. It goes this way. So first thing will be a phase of gathering requirements, have conversations, write things down, and so on. After the phase is finished, it will have a pause to get it signed off, and then that gets handed over to whoever's going to do the next phase of design. And very similar high-level design, conversations, documents, and whatever. Then after that, another sign off, then develop phase, integration phase. And it's not only integration with other systems, but integrating with existing parts. And then test. And actually, I'm missing deploy. Let's bring down deploy over here. So if this is the amount of stuff of work we want to do, and this is the timeline, this is when we want to do it, we need to realize that at this point of time, we rarely have perfect knowledge at the beginning. But in fact, at this point of time is when we know the least that we are ever going to know about the thing that we're doing in the future. So let's just play in the olden days waterfall cascade of events. Remember, this is stuff to be done that we want to get at the door, and this is the timeline. So we'll start this requirement phase, have those conversations and write down documents, and then we'll do phase 2 and start with the design, high-level design for the documents and whatever else. Now, at this point, we still have the same to deliver. Right? We haven't touched the product. We still have this whole same amount of stuff that we want to get out of the way. And so what's happening? When we start touching the products, we learn more. Things may have changed, things may have evolved, things may have become more important than they were before, or that's not so much. So, what do we do? Now, in traditional project management, you kind of have 3 variables to play with. One will be cost, right? So you could be asking, may I have more budget, please, right? Cost. Now, this doesn't go down well at all in my experience, but you could also ask, can we extend the timeline over here? So time. And that also doesn't go down very well because all the things are related to that time. You may be hiring people once that thing is done. So, maybe the servicing team expanding, and for that you're improving how customer service is handled or whatever else. Or maybe you have a campaign that it has been already signed and it goes to mass media and it can be moved. And then we have, the variable 3, which unfortunately is the one that gets most compromised, right? Which is quality. Now, so what's happened, right? We're not touching cost or time. What we are doing, we are stretching key deliverables, such as testing and assurance, kind of towards the end. And you can see in the graph, it makes this bombshell effect, right? And the name, it tells you everything. We go to production and then explodes. So instead, we want to look at the whole thing in a different lens, right? In a different manner, where this concept of often of iterations, so that we can improve our predictability and control risk, meaning that we enable to go from A to B and enhancing every step of the way. So what we want to do instead is having small loops of value, hence the little present, throughout. And so if something crazy happened here, like a pandemic hits you, you still have value in use and in the market, right? You don't have to put things on the bin completely because there is something already out there. Just to close the concept of waterfall, and then the one may not be mentioned anymore, is that the guy that came up with this idea, or is often attributed this idea of like steps, phases, ways to deliver projects, Winston Royce, this in 1970, when he was in his paper Proceedings explaining these steps of events, he said himself, I believe in this concept, but the implementation described above is risky and invites failure. Why is the thing that is most used in projects? It's a mystery that I don't think we're gonna solve today. So if it's not waterfall, waterfall is a methodology, right? And let's just start with definitions. As good philosophers, a methodology is a system of methods in a particular area of study. Okay, what is a method? A method is a particular procedure for accomplishing and approaching something especially systematic and established one. Now, Agile is not a methodology, it's not a method, right? The work that we do, I argue that is creative. We don't replicate things, copy paste. We take in very conceptual, intangible things, and we make them tangible. We make them visible and accessible. Right? So what I argue is that's why I put the avocado here, because it reminds me of the word advocate. So what I advocate for is that Agile is in fact a mindset, and a mindset is an established set of attitudes held by someone. This is how we tackle projects. This is a lens of how we look at the world for a challenge. Right? And with this mindset, it's not about doing Agile, it's about being Agile. And what it really does is promote planning. Of course, we do planning, but our planning is adaptive. And of course, we do development, but it's evolutionary, how we can reuse and couple, make things, rather than making things to last, we're making things to adapt. And of course, we do delivery with the idea of early delivery, right? Sooner. And continuous improvement. What Agile really does is encouraging rapid and flexible response to change. Now, a little bit of history over here. The Agile Manifesto actually turned 20 years this year, earlier in this year. And few people 20 years ago, they gathered in a ski resort in Utah, and they were already delivering things in a different way. So they decided to keep the discrepancies aside and find similarities so that they could align in the ways that they have found useful from using them already to be most effective, right? And so you have representative from extreme programming, Scrum, and Crystal, feature-driven development. And yes, it comes from software, but in fact, it can be used in anything. It can be applied anywhere. If you're interested, just ask me. I have a little video about a construction project of 15 stories building with an earthquake magnitude resistance of 9, and the whole thing, it was done in 6 days. Right? So also myself, I work with, from startups to the biggest utility company here in the UK. And even I work with a roofing company, and yes, they go to site, they find bugs, they go to site, take some tiles, and they're like, surprise, Or they also do spikes where they can ring fence a bit of time to learn more, to decide what's a better approach to solve something, because there is always more than one way to achieve something. And another different one is I was working with a PMO team, right? A project management office team. And yes, with the kind of work that they do, they also can be more agile. So I also saw this, and I thought it would be useful to bring it to you guys. So because I find this site quite interesting, shows the system landscape. And this is only on MarTech, right? Marketing and technology. So look at the growth of options, of tools and things. Here I think we have since 2014. They've been collecting data since 2011, I think. And what I'm trying to depict here is that the change is innate, right? It's part of us. The exponential growth of options, of technology, possibilities, the ever-change environment is not going to slow down, on the contrary. So it's important not to get confused with flashy new things. Aim and measure impact. That's what matters. So we did say earlier that things change very quickly, just thinking about the last 18 months and the roller coaster that has affected our world in many different ways. And just thinking about Salesforce work, the work that we do, how many months and months of projects are still in limbo? Or things just gone to the bin? Things that are not used. It's mad, think about all that time and effort and obviously funds, So more than ever, we can make the difference. We can make a difference. In fact, it's key that we keep going at it. We see how transformations that will have taken months, it happens within days, I'm talking about from health, education, charities, work from anywhere. Things that will have seemed impossible or projects for forever. When we reduce waste, we focus, come together and align to what matters, things can happen. So it is key that we keep going. Technology is an enabler, but we need to do it in a smarter way. Right? So keeping in mind that mindset when approaching a challenge. So Agile gives you 4 values, 12 principles, and we just don't have time for this right now. So you can access this course for free, right? If you go to that URL. And where I go much more into details, I even talked about the Agile Onion, right? What we have in the screen. And I'm even covering the concept of cycles, for example, in the Scrum framework, much more in detail. Because when we were talking about having feedback loops to deliver value through, it could look something like this, right? This idea of cycles or time boxes. It may look for you something in this way. The value of doing so is that, well, this idea of sprints somebody mentioned earlier, or time boxes. We see that, being with the cycles, with those constant feedback loops, what really allows you to do is go to market earlier. So we can start trading, we can get income and value earlier, right? We can respond to new events and information. We can deliver that value in the market. So we can learn what's really wanted, what actually works. And that's going to help us to inform the next steps rather than guessing or hidden agendas or gut feel or anything like that. And just stop wasting time into things that are not worth it, right? This is just really brings home to me that idea of reduce deviation, focus on what matters, and stop wasting time, what allows you some headspace and other time to actually experiment so that we can innovate faster, we can try new things, we can learn LWC we haven't yet, right? There are things that we need to do, so we need to make space for those things to happen. Because at the end of the day, you can't apply a deterministic mindset to an emergent area. The only thing we can do is to poke, learn from the poking, and then respond accordingly. You may have heard, I think there was mention earlier on the hybrid, right? The so-called hybrid Scrumfall, where you merge Waterfall with something else. Those things, unfortunately, what it does is defeat the object. You're basically shooting yourself in the foot because you're going to be missing out the benefits of it. The reason that happens is because our brain, we humans, when we learn something new, right, we apply old ideas, right? So we are trying to fit new things into old thinking. No wonder things get really confusing. It's like when you take out toothpaste of the tube and then trying to push it back in. It isn't pretty. It's not going to work pretty well. Right? It's very appealing. Why? Because also as humans, it gives us this false sense of security, and our monkey brains kind of really drawn to that. So running towards the end now on time. So let's wrap up some more thoughts. Now, this way of iterative, incremental, increasing our predictability of our selves and reducing risk, what it's going to give you is a competitive advantage that no other manner can do at this rate, or not that I've seen, right? So having a vision where you're going, right? Like knowing your horizon is key, and then you're going to be fine-tuning along the way. It's just like a journey on a map. Now, the way that you slice the work so that you can deliver it on those iterations is key, right? I put a piece of cake over here, so just think it like this. At the end of every cycle, somebody can eat it. Now, having small pieces of work that are fully bite-sized, that somebody can eat it at the end, is something usable, is key. And in traditional software, you basically looking at your pieces of work contain your business logic, database, saving, deleting, editing, whatever, and then user interface, right? There's the 3 layers of the cake. And so making sure that how you're slicing it contains all of this. And it's also really, really help us in the way that how it's made so that things are related to each other on this. But yeah, just that idea that is something can be used, that is enabling going from A to B. So if whatever happens, the thing that is finished is actually of value, right? Because having many things in progress does not bring value. Only finished things and in use is what brings value. And remember, the goal is not to be agile. The goal is to improve. Hence the idea of delivering better Salesforce value sooner, safer, and happier. And for that, you're going to need to experiment, come together with your team, and use those iterations, those loops, to also look at how you're doing things, how the way that you're doing things can be tweaked to help you to be more effective. And that's the content that we have right now. So thank you very much. I studied communications, so I had to put a product placement over here. But yeah, very happy to take the questions. We can stay in the room and continue with the conversation. I understand that we need to wrap up for the next session, but I'll stay in this room for whoever wants to continue discussing about this, any questions or whatever you like to talk about. And thank you very much. I'm very easy to find, so please connect with me on Twitter and take it from there.